This is Nigeria's political and elections season, but we always try here on Business Morning not to get our economy, business and markets trampled on by the noise on the political street. So try to keep our eyes focused on the economy, because whether you like it or not, the economy will survive the political winners and losers in this season, as always been. Economy is always king. So tax revenue generation is a major focus for the government at the center. What about the subnational level? What has been done and what could be done to make sure that some of the things being done at the federal level are not frittered away at the subnational level, talking about the states and local governments down the 2 tiers of government. And that was part of the Deloitte in Dialogue panel session, which are giving you some of the highlights at this moment. Take a listen.
The next thing, the current trend in taxation is cooperative compliance. And that happens when we have collaboration, when we share visions together, we work at it together, not in an adversarial approach of taxation, but in a way that is collaborative. And Dr. Jumoke and FRS, we have had to collaborate a number of times to smoothen the processes, to ensure that we take on board what are the views of businesses, how do we make our tax system such that it will attract investment. I mean, just like Dr. Doyle said, that we are in a competitive environment, and so we can't practice tax the way we used to practice, and that's what we are doing, and that is where we are diversifying and hoping to attract more businesses to Nigeria and to ensure to diversify the tax base in Nigeria.
I think the first point to make is that out there in the world, you've got tons of dollars looking for outlets. And if you come into emerging markets, I guess we're all competing for same resources, for same capital. And therefore, unless you create the environment that is conducive for capital to come your way, they will go elsewhere. That said, we need to appreciate what government has done. I think I'm one of those that would say over the last 3 years, there's been incredible reforms driven by PEBEC, Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. And little wonder we've seen also our global competitiveness with base 10 points to 115 out of 140. But I don't celebrate that in the context of what we know is happening to other markets that are even in Africa. And I'll just point out 4 or 5 countries. Rwanda, Mauritius, Botswana, Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, all ahead of us. And that should be a cause for concern. The question is, what are they doing or what have they done that has made them more competitive than us? And I think the point around just creating infrastructure is very important. When I say infrastructure, top of the list will be power. You can't emphasize that or underscore the importance of just creating power availability so that they can think of how else they can deploy capital when it comes in. Infrastructure is also key. Unless you create access from the farm gate to the factory, and from factory to the refrigerator, which means to the final consumer, then the cost of production will be very high. These are things that they take for granted in other climes. Policy certainty, very important. And I'm glad to know that the 4 areas we scored very highly, where we improved, because there are about 12 pillars that are tracked in the Global Competitiveness Report. 12 pillars. The 4 areas we have scored very highly for the last 1 year will be ICT, infrastructure, institutions, and of course the macro economy. So if we take those areas and we say we are creating policy certainty, whether it's around interest rates or around exchange rates, and also delivering power, then you are making a case for capital to come your way.
From the tax side, if taxes are to be paid, it will be paid, it has to be paid. But if we have government consideration then I think it's something that is worth encouraging more people to get involved in such areas. We must be clear that government cannot do everything anyway. There would be some level of participation of the private sector in helping government to really achieve the objective of creating an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. So I see the order as one of those initiatives in that area, considering the funding requirement for projects, road projects and things like that. But all the while, I want to say that if incentives are given, fortunately, it's a general order. It's not only for a particular sector or a particular company, but it's something that everybody will benefit. And I think that will ease the burden on the government in terms of making sure that we have the right infrastructure in place for companies to thrive and for the citizens to have a good life. With respect to the multiplicity of taxes, I think there was a mention about some cases that are in the public. Now, there are two things when it comes to the issue of taxes, especially the state taxes. We look at the issue of reasonableness and the issue of legality. So when you have a tax that is legal, it falls in line with the laws, the federal laws, and is within the jurisdiction of that particular state. It just has to be something you comply with. But a tax could be legal, but it's not reasonable. Because if you look at the amount, there are some states, I know some states are in court with Employer Constitutive Association over the reasonability and the legality of some of these taxes for the states. But I believe that in the bid of driving revenue for the state, we should also look at what is the need for the businesses in those areas. The taxes should not be such that could kill or crumble the business and not make the business be able to thrive in that environment. And what is the government giving back to that society even after these taxes have been paid? There is a social order contract. So when you're saying you want to collect taxes, what are we getting back from government? I've always been an advocate of tax morality. But if a taxpayer goes through that tax morality line and is transparent, it should be recognized.
From 2017, July, we made a presentation, the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment and I made a presentation to the NEC, and the governors unanimously agreed to adopt a PEBEC model. Some states have already had an ease of doing business intervention underway. So we've replicated very strongly the coordinated approach because it's one economy, and we've replicated that also working with the legislature and the judiciary. Now, so what I alluded to earlier, all levels of government are on board with the ease of doing business intervention. You will recall that last year, the World Bank released a subnational survey on ease of doing business for Nigeria. Nigeria is one of 11 countries that has a specific country survey gone into detail by the World Bank. And in that survey, at least about 32 states moved right. The Kaduna stripe was way right. If Nigeria was Kaduna, we would be about 60th position in the world right now.
Can we give a round of applause to Kaduna?
Yeah. They're my poster child. So that's why I had to have Mohammed sit beside me. They're really doing a lot of reforms, and I wouldn't preempt him because he's speaking later. Okay, but still on the subnational level and the coordination, working with all 6 geopolitical zones, all state governments, really replicating this very good example you've heard from Kaduna. This is going on across several other states. And what this does is this creates a friendly competitive environment among state governments. Now, because of that, the NEC approved last year that we have a subnational survey across the states, and in that survey, that baseline survey, which will be released later this year, will be tracking security and infrastructure, workforce readiness, access to information, and of course the regulatory environment. These are the enablers that will ensure that across the country, the development is driven in a systemic manner, that companies and businesses don't feel this pressure in certain areas of the country, and that they know what is available across the length and breadth of the country. When it comes to revenue generation, to be competitive, states are also realizing that the way you harness the levies, your charges, your tax, also speaks to your competitiveness. So Kaduna, for example, has been able to poach a number of businesses from neighboring states. And what he didn't tell you is that, of course, the infrastructure readiness, Kaduna has the rail, Kaduna has the airport, Kaduna has a dry port. These are the strategic initiatives that state governments are now putting in place. Of course, broadband access also. They removed the rates completely, so it's free to lay internet access. Just those kinds of things to drive. He's right in front of me, so he's my main example. But I know Edo State is in the room, and there are a lot of going on there before I get into trouble, because I work with all the governors. But really, it's been phenomenal. And what I'm trying to tell private sector is that the collaboration that we have enjoyed on this intervention has really been second to none, and we're confident that with the entire economy moving in the right direction, the best is yet to come.